In 2008, a browser game put your face inside a killer's room. You had granted camera access. You had not agreed to become evidence. The game was not malware. It was an ad for Doritos. By then, Flash games had taught one lesson. The link was not safe. The friend who sent it was not safe. And eventually, neither was the room behind you. These were not 5 versions of the same cheap scream. The danger moved in one direction. Closer. It began inside a cursor-sized maze. 3 games later, the player was helping the monster. 1 game after that, the fiction knew what the player looked like. What changed between those points was not the quality of the graphics. It was how much the game could persuade someone to give it. This is how a generation learned to distrust an innocent blue hyperlink, 1 click at a time. In October 2004, developer Jeremy Winterode made a tiny Flash game called The Maze and emailed it to his friends. Months later, the file reached his own family again, passed along by people who had no idea where it began. The game looked almost insultingly harmless. You guided a blue dot through 3 narrow corridors without touching the walls. There was no monster, no blood, and no visible threat. Just a steady hand, a bright screen, and a maze that became tighter until your face was naturally inches from the monitor. That concentration was the mechanism. At the point where the path demanded your full attention, the game replaced the maze with a screaming face and a blast of sound. The scarce lasted seconds. The suspicion lasted much longer, because the maze was rarely discovered alone. Someone sent it to you. Someone stood behind your chair. Someone told you the 3rd level was difficult and tried not to laugh. The game turned friendship into part of its code. Then the reaction became the real content. A webcam pointed at a sibling, a parent, a classmate. The victim was no longer just playing a prank. They were producing the next copy of it. The scream ended. The tab closed. Behind the chair, your friend was still laughing and already choosing the next victim. In 2005, Sentai Studio released The House. It presented 5 monochrome rooms and almost no conventional puzzle logic. You did not combine items or study a map. You stared at a room, found something suspicious, and clicked it. Then you clicked it again. A family photograph, a note, a sink, a shadow where no shadow had been before. 1 click marked an object as suspicious. Another changed it. Soon, you learned to brace whenever curiosity brought the cursor back. But the cursor still came back. That small detail changed the relationship. The maze attacked while you tried to avoid failure. The house waited until curiosity overruled your instincts. Every room offered a silent bargain. Nothing happens unless you ask for more. The 5-room structure turned fear into a ritual. Enter, inspect, click, wait. Notice 1 new detail. Click again. Each cycle trained you to anticipate the interruption while withholding the exact moment it would arrive. And because the backgrounds resembled damaged photographs more than cartoon art, the browser window stopped feeling like a game portal. It felt like a folder of evidence you had opened by mistake. By the 5th room, the cursor felt less like a tool than a hand reaching into evidence. The next game gave that evidence a mythology. In October 2004, Australian developer Ben Leffler released his first Flash game, Exmortis. A contemporary review described the opening simply. You wake in freezing woods with no memory, see an abandoned house, and decide that shelter is better than exposure. It is the kind of decision horror stories punish. Exmortis made you carry it out 1 doorway at a time. Inside, the rooms were dim, dirty, and built from images that felt too physical for a small browser game. A lamp moved without wind. Writing appeared where it should not. Diaries and symbols suggested that the house was not merely haunted. It was trying to return a memory you had lost. The important part was the time between scares. A corridor could remain empty just long enough for you to start inspecting it normally. A room could offer a clue, then leave you alone with the sound. The interface gave you arrows and hot spots, but no reliable boundary between navigation and danger. Every useful click could also be the click that changed the frame. This was more than a screamer wrapped around a puzzle. The story made continuing feel necessary. If you close the tab, you escape the image, but abandon the answer. So you read the next diary. You open the next door. You watched the same dark hallway for movement and supplied half of it with your own imagination. The maze taught you that the screen could betray you instantly. Exmortis taught you something worse. It could make you stay. On October 8, 2007, Zbarf uploaded The Visitor to Newgrounds. Its description was blunt: consume organic creatures and mutate into something bigger. You were not trapped with the monster. You controlled it. The visitor began with a small alien parasite and a series of point-and-click problems. Progress meant observing a scene, testing objects, and discovering the correct order of actions. In another puzzle game, success opens a door. Here, success gave the creature another victim, another transformation, and another way into the house. That made the placer responsible in a way the earlier games had avoided. The grotesque result was not a punishment for clicking the wrong thing. It was confirmation that the puzzle had been solved correctly. A harmless object became bait. A distraction created access. A successful sequence ended with the parasite consuming another living thing and adding its traits to its body. Then the animation rewarded the player. The visitor turned disgust into feedback. Efficient thinking made the creature more capable. By the time it reached the humans, the final scenes arrived with an uncomfortable fact already established. The parasite had an accomplice. In 2008, Doritos launched Hotel 626. The premise was familiar: escape a haunted building by surviving a sequence of rooms. The delivery was not. First, the site refused to open during the day. The hotel accepted guests only from 6 in the evening until 6 in the morning. The message was clear: this experience had operating hours, and they began when your own windows went dark. Inside, the game mixed-filmed horror with timed challenges. In one room, you had to use your microphone to sing a demon baby to sleep. Make too much noise, lose the rhythm, or panic, and the scene turned against you. Then the site asked for your webcam. At first, this looked like another input device. You clicked allow. Later, a photograph of your own face appeared inside the madman's lair. The game cashed in that permission by converting the safest image in the room, you sitting at the computer, into evidence that you were already inside the hotel. And if you entered your mobile number, the escape instructions arrived as a call on your actual phone. That ring changed the scale of the threat. Until then, every scare could be contained by the rectangle of the monitor. Hotel 626 made a second object in the room speak: the browser, the webcam, the microphone, the phone. 4 separate pieces of ordinary hardware were now cooperating with the fiction. This was still advertising. A campaign case study later reported 4 million unique visitors and an average stay of 13 minutes. By then, the social chain that carried the maze had acquired a camera feed. The prank knew what its guest looked like, and the phone was still ringing. Adobe ended support for Flash Player on December 31, 2020, then blocked Flash content from running on January 12, 2021. The native doorway into these games closed. But here is the twist: emulators can preserve the files. They cannot preserve the moment before the first click. An archive can replay the scream, the empty hallway, the parasite, and the camera prompt. It cannot recreate an unmarked link arriving from a friend when neither of you had a reason to be suspicious. And that was the mechanism these games shared outside their code. The files survived. Their delivery system did not. What remains is the reflex these games helped create. Pause before the click. Check the link. Look behind the chair. Subscribe. There are more things hiding in the dead parts of the internet.